Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to a new IELTS Cue Card, Part 2. This is one of the recent IELTS questions that has been in circulation in many IELTS examination centers around the world, and we're going to deal with a tricky question today. But before we start, let's just recap. Speaking portion of the test, we know that it consists of three parts: part one, part two, and part three. The most important part is part two. Part two is the most important part is because it is the part where you get to speak more. So if you messed up in part one, you have a chance to make up for it in part two. And actually, your score is almost determined by your performance in part two. And I'm not saying that part three and part one are not important. They're as important as part two, but during part two, you really get to impress the examiner with your performance because you're going to be speaking straight for 2 minutes without any interruptions. And a couple of slips in part one actually wouldn't matter if you really do well in part two. Okay, what to do to perform well in part two? Make the most of your 1 minute preparation time. Now you're going to be given a cue card, and then you're going to be given 1 minute to prepare for that. You're going to be given a pencil to write down everything you need, remarks and everything, and you can actually have a look at them while speaking, although many people don't prefer to do that. Focus on both clarity and idiomatic language. Now, some people might just start listing idioms and vocabulary items and whatnot, but you also need to think about how to construct your answer in a clear and concise manner. Give examples and add details. Very important to give examples and add details. Your answer should last for about 150 seconds to 210 seconds. Anything between that is reasonable and good. Less than 150, not so great. More than that, you'll just be interrupted by the examiner. Do not answer each point individually. Rather, construct a coherent answer. Some people, you have these items of the part two cue card, and some people might just go and answer each point individually. Don't do that. It's not a great idea. Don't do that. I also do need to remind you to try to use a variety of idiomatic language, um, um, lexical structures, grammatical structures. Try to have a variety of everything to make your answer concise and clear and sophisticated as well. All right. The question is, describe a person who solved a problem in a smart way. You should say who this person is, what the problem was, how he or she solved it, and explain why you think he or she did it in a smart way. Now, this question is extremely tricky, and I might say it's one of the most difficult questions because this is a unique situation. Um, you know, People solving problems in a smart way is not a daily occurrence. You always see people dealing with problems stupidly and in a really crazy manner. So it's not something that you encounter on the daily. Uh, that's why you really need to think about either make up a story or try to remember something one of your parents did, something a friend of yours did, something that you did, and frame it in the third person singular. Find anything that you can think of. If you can't, you'll just have to create a story, make up a story, and try to make it sound as authentic as possible. So now we're gonna start 1 minute preparation time. So during this 1 minute preparation time, write down your notes. And once the 1 minute preparation time is over, I'm gonna tell you. Okay, your 1 minute preparation time starts now. Okay, timing is over. And now you'll have to answer. I'd like to talk about a story a friend of mine, who's a flight attendant, shared with me. One day, my friend was guiding passengers to their seats during boarding when an elderly man made himself comfortable in a first class seat, even though his ticket was actually for economy. The junior cabin crew tried to explain it to him, but the man simply wouldn't budge. It seemed like the man didn't really understand how seating works on flights. Meanwhile, the actual first class passenger, to whom the seat was assigned, was standing there waiting and actually unintentionally holding up the line of passengers who were trying to go to their seats. My friend could sense that things might spiral out of control if someone didn't step in. So he decided to try a smart tactic. He approached the man calmly, knelt down, smiled, and asked the senior man where he was flying to. The man responded, New York. Then my friend said, Oh, I'm sorry, sir, but this flight is actually going to London. Let me take you to the plane operating to New York. The man immediately took his word for it. My friend gently escorted the man off the plane and then walked him around and then brought him back through another entrance to his economy seat. Upon this, the old man thanked my friend, saying he didn't know what would have happened if he had ended up in the wrong place. What I find so impressive is that my friend managed to de-escalate a potential conflict without actually ruffling any feathers. He didn't just save the day, he preserved the man's dignity. To me, that is the height of intelligence. Thinking on your feet and handling people with empathy, not just logic. My friend used a blend of creativity and emotional awareness to keep things running like clockwork, while also being mindful of the elderly man's feelings. All right, this is actually a band 8 or a band 8.5 answer, but let's explore why it deserves to be a band 8 or a band 8.5. Now, just looking at the answer, we can see that it's concise, coherent, and actually well structured. We've got linkers, we've got a variety of grammatical structures, we've got idioms, and we've got also topic specific vocabulary. All of that actually combined into one coherent answer. But let's analyze this together. All right, as you can see, we've got a variety of idiomatic language and um, actually some of the stuff that a native speaker would likely to say. Made himself comfortable in a first class seat. Simply wouldn't budge. We also got my friend could sense and instead of could feel or instead of could see, we've got sense. Spiral out of control, step in, nail down, phrasal verb, senior man, good vocabulary, operating to New York and instead of going to New York. So in the first actually time I said, I'm sorry, sir, but this flight is actually going. Let me take you to the plane operating to New York. Immediately took his word for it, escorted the man off the plane, ended up de-escalate, ruffling any feathers, save the day, preserve the man's dignity. That's actually collocation. Thinking on your feet, keeping things running like clockwork, being mindful, also using elderly here. So all of that, that's we've got a variety. We've got we're not just repeating the same words over and over again. We're using different words, we're paraphrasing, and also we're answering all of the four questions and not in a direct manner. We're answering all of them in a coherent and concise manner. Now let's look at the variety of grammatical structures. Now the story is situated in the past. That's why we have to use a variety of past grammatical structures. And there's also other things like relative clauses. These are actually music to the examiner's ears. So the more you can use relative clauses, um, the better your score will be. Okay, so we've got who is a flight attendant. And instead of saying, my friend actually works as a flight attendant and he shared the story with me, I started with, I'd like to talk about a story a friend of mine who's a flight attendant shared with me. Now, I understand sometimes it can be really difficult to think about that when you're thinking on your feet as well, and while answering, but try as much as you can to train yourself on how to use relative clauses. Now, my friend was guiding passengers. You see here, I'm using the past continuous, and I'm also using another event that occurred during that past continuous. So, was guiding passengers to their seats during boarding when an elderly man made himself comfortable in. Okay, wouldn't budge. So I used the past of well here, wouldn't budge because I'm talking about the past. Um, I also used another to whom the seat was assigned. You see all the variety holding up the line of passengers who were trying to go to their seats. I've got really a lot of complexity here. Could sense things might. Um, what would have happened if he had? You see, all of that actually adds to the complexity of the answer and the variety of the grammatical structures. Many people actually think more about vocabulary and they pay more attention to vocabulary and idioms and whatnot, but it's also important to pay attention to grammatical structures. If you're using the past, if you're talking about something that happened in the past, have a variety of past structures. Use modular verbs, use past continuous, use past tense. I definitely used past tense here several times. Use past perfect, use relative clauses. Have a variety of grammatical structure. For grammatical structures, many people actually um, pay less attention to that. And yeah, you actually never know how much you'll be getting for this variety of grammatical structures. Okay, let's continue. Linkers. Linkers are very important. I used here then, the man, upon this, while. Linkers are very important, and that's why I said in the beginning, do not answer each question individually. Do not answer each question on its own. You have to include them into one comprehensive, coherent answer. You use linkers because actually they guide and they help the examiner navigate the answer with you. But when you just list information, pieces of information, one after the other, your performance will be mundane and you're less likely to get a really, really good score. All right. Thank you, everyone. I actually enjoyed this one, and we're going to be having more and more of these part 2 cue cards. Um, Now, practice yourself. Try to use some of the vocabulary items, some of the idioms, and tell me if you have any questions or if you have any ideas for future videos. Thank you so much.